If your business is bringing in income, but you never really feel like you get ahead, this is what I call being on the cash flow hamster wheel, where you're basically always constantly chasing the next sale. And it's almost like you're living paycheck to paycheck in your business. Today, I'm going to show you the most important thing that you can do in order to break free of that cycle and get ahead. And as a little hint, when people talk about quantum leaping, really this is what they're talking about. So lately, I've really been thinking in terms of series on my podcast and answering like a big picture question that a lot of business owners have with a 4 to 5 part video series. So you can go see all of those on my YouTube channel. This is the first episode of a new series that's going to walk you through how to double your CEO paycheck. And this one was honestly inspired by a couple of things. First and foremost, we're going to be running a really fun challenge coming up in just about a month. And so the challenge is going to walk you through step by step how to implement some of the things that we're talking about in this video series. But it also occurred to me right as I was sitting down to record this episode that I am also in a season of trying to do exactly what I'm preaching in this series. So I looked back over the last 6 to 12 months, and I have basically paid myself consistently around, let's say, $8,000 to $10,000 a month, which is kind of my like standard living expenses plus, vacations, discretionary spending, stuff like that. Maybe like 10 to 12K. I should probably know this number off the top of my head, but I'm never really great at remembering specific numbers. Honestly, y'all, like that is a great number. It covers all of our bills, but for the size of business that I have, it's a little bit lower than I would like for it to be. And if I had a client coming in, I would say, I'd like to see this higher. I would also say though, that over the last 12 months, even 18 months, I have been more in a season of reinvesting back into my business. We were trying a whole bunch of different things, which you've probably heard me talk about in some of the quarterly planning episodes. But we were doing a whole bunch of different things to try some stuff out, to grow the business, trying different avenues for marketing and offers and whatnot. I have a lot more clarity after the last several months of what we need to do going forward. And so now I'm shifting my mindset from reinvesting back into the business over to I'm going to optimize what I can take home and pay myself because I have some personal things that I would like to be able to put money towards. So just know that as I'm talking you through these steps, this is what I would work with a client coming in on, and it's actually what I'm taking myself through as I ask myself, how can I double my take home from 10K-ish a month up to 20K or more per month in the next 3 to 6 months? Like, what would it take for my business to restructure it in such a way that is a reality and that's a relatively easy goal for my business to achieve? So the answer to the question of how do you break free from the cash flow hamster wheel actually has less to do with financials and more to do with your time. Specifically, how do you reclaim your time and put yourself in control of how you spend your days and the things that you prioritize with your time? Your time is the most important and valuable resource that anybody has. It's the only thing that in this world that we can't create more time in our lives. And as a business owner, the way that you prioritize your time tells me what you prioritize in your business, and it tells me what things you're going to see, what types of results you're going to get in your business. And what most people do when they want to make more money, when they say, how can I double my take-home pay, is they say, I just probably need to work harder. So I actually just read this book that really irked me the other day. The book was good overall. It was called Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Spoiler alert if you want to read that book and you haven't yet. But the MMC in that book is a vet, and he has his own clinic, and he needs to make more money. And what he does to make more money, instead of sitting down to ask himself in his business, how can I make more money in his business? Or actually, I think he did that, and it was like a paragraph of no, this is not possible for me to make more money in my business. He decides to take overnight emergency vet shifts in order to make more money. And it was bothering me because doing what I do, I was like, well, obviously we need to rethink the business structure, right? But I think that what he did in this book is probably what a lot of people do when you're stuck in that employee mindset, is thinking, if I need to make more money, I just need to go work more hours for somebody else, basically, in order to take home more of a paycheck. But I'll say this, from working with wealthy clients, from working with clients with multi-million-dollar businesses, from having over $1 million in net worth myself, I'm going to tell you that wealthy people with that mindset of like abundance and a wealthy person mindset, instead of asking, how can I use my time in order to trade my time for more money? They ask themselves, what are the opportunities that I see in front of me where I can create an asset that makes me more money so that they don't have to put their time into making money? The asset makes the money for them. And I'm going to tell you that you, as a business owner, have that option available to you. It's just not the mindset that a lot of us grew up with. It's like not the mindset that most people in this culture have, because most people have that employee trading time for money mindset. But if we want to break free of that, we have to shift our mindset. And so answering the question, looking at everything that you do in your business, what is the thing that makes you the most money? What is the biggest money maker that you have? And your goal is going to be to sit down, identify that thing that is the most impactful thing, and figure out what are the things that you're doing that are not in alignment with the moneymaker, and how can you cut those things out of your time to reclaim your time and to put more effort and energy into doing more of the thing that makes you more money. If you want to do some reading, there's a couple books that I think really speak to this concept. One of them is 10x is easier than 2x, which I did a podcast episode after reading that book January 2024, I believe. So you can scroll back and watch that. A book that I just recently read, which is called The Big Leap. And in there, he talks about the zone of genius and how a lot of people stay more comfortable and complacent in the zone of competence or even a zone of excellence. But if you really want more wealth and more abundance, you have to figure out how to spend basically all of your time in your zone of genius. And so those are kind of similar concepts from both of those books. One really important thing to remember is that you are the only person in control of your time. And it can feel like other people have control of your time. It can feel like clients, team, your family are the ones who will come in and kind of take over. And so I see very frequently people who say, like, I'm just so busy, I feel like I don't have a choice but to do the things that I'm doing. And I want you to remember that every single thing that you do is a choice. And so if you feel like other people are taking charge of your calendar, then you have options to set boundaries, to restructure how you work with people, to get help with, household stuff, whatever it is that takes up a lot of your time that's outside of your zone of genius. You absolutely have the choice to make a change there. And it's just so easy to forget that that is our choice. Actually, I was having a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago who is a personal trainer who wakes up at like 4 a.m. and works out. And the trainer was like, I just don't really have a choice. I have to wake up early. That's when people want to train. I was like, actually, you do have a choice. You can choose to not wake up at 4 a.m. You can choose to not train people at this time. You just may be giving up those clients who only want to train at that time. And you have to figure out another way to structure your calendar in a way that works better for you. And so in this case, this is a really great example of somebody feeling like, I don't have a choice but to do this thing that I don't really love because that was how they'd structured their business, when in reality, they absolutely have the opportunity to make a change if they want to. So the question that I want you to ask yourself here is, how can you sit down and find the thing, the zone of genius, the thing that makes you the most money, the thing that you do that's the most impactful? How can you find what that one thing is so that you can prioritize that more than the other things that you might have been prioritizing that are not within your zone of genius? So a couple questions that you can journal on. Question 1 is, what work do you do that doesn't feel like work? What things do your clients give you the most positive feedback on? What is the most impactful or the most fulfilling thing that you do? What do you love doing the most? And what do you do better than anybody else? If you can sit down and figure out what that is, then it's time for you to refine your business model, refine your offers and your value proposition to really focus in on that one thing. So as an example, I'm still in the process of rewriting my zone of genius statement because I really think it's helpful to have like a bio written around that thing. And I will say, I've done this multiple times throughout running a business throughout my life, and it is completely normal to refine, to revise, to update it over time, because as humans, we change, we evolve, the world changes. And so I'm doing this again because I'm just starting this process over. So it's totally fine if you need to sit down and revise or change what you might have written previously. So what I said was in my zone of genius was I'm excellent at being able to take where somebody wants to go and being able to very clearly see what their next 5 to 10 steps need to be. I can catalyze them to get started down that path. I can take something that feels big and overwhelming and make it feel less so. And I also am pretty good at seeing creative approaches to solving a problem that somebody has that they don't see for themselves. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to look at, where do I show up in my business? Where do I spend time on things in my business and frankly in my overall life that don't align with that statement of what I'm really amazing at, that I think I'm better at than anybody else, right? Where am I doing things that don't align, and how can I let them go? And then how can I double down, or, maybe not 2x, but 10x that in the way that I run my business, in the way that we deliver services to clients, in the value proposition statements, in marketing, in content creation, and everything, right? But I really think you just have to let go of the things that are outside of that. And that's hard. That's a really hard thing to do. And when you go to do that, your brain is probably going to fight back against you. It's like your inner 7-year-old version of you is going to be in there and be like, I feel scared about stopping doing these things, about getting rid of offers or team members or clients or whatever it is. But you also know, like the higher version of yourself, you know that it's the thing you need to do, but just your inner 7-year-old is scared of that. So know that that's going to happen and be prepared for what you're going to do when you try to talk yourself out of doing the hard things. Some of the things I think you can think through is like, okay, if I'm going to let go of this thing that's taking up a lot of my time, what are some of the fears that might come up? It could be a fear of letting go, a fear of being seen as a failure for letting go of something that you did because it didn't work out the way that you wanted it to. This one definitely resonates with me personally. You might have sunk costs, meaning you might have put costs into things, into building out a service line or training a team member, and then you realize, you know what, it's really just not working out. You can't allow the fact that you've already put time and money and energy into something force you to keep putting more time and money and energy into something when you know it's not the best path forward. You could also be afraid of letting other people down, maybe what people will think or say about you. If you have to let people go off of your team, are you going to be seen as a bad person? You might also just want to stay comfortable. So you might look and say, you know what, I feel comfortable like me right now. I'm paying the bills. I'm covering everything that I need. I just know that there's more out there. And so more means I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone. And so there's this fear of doing that. And so your brain might just want to stay in the comfortable place. I think there's also sometimes a fear of success being easy. So if you let go of these things, like for me, for example, there's some things in my business that I have my eye on that I'm going to eliminate or delegate. And when I do that, I'm going to free up hours upon hours of my time every week. And there's this thought in my head of like, is this going to be too easy? Right? Is this right? Like, shouldn't making more money mean that I have to work harder? And that's that mindset coming up of trading time for money. So in summary, to break out of the cash flow hamster wheel, the number one thing that you can do is to reclaim your time. And to reclaim your time, you're going to sit down and figure out what is the thing that is the most impactful, that is the biggest moneymaker that you have in your business. And you are going to figure out ways that you can stop doing things that are not in alignment with that by either eliminating them or delegating them. And you're going to spend more time prioritizing the stuff that really moves the needle. In next week's episode, we're going to dive a little bit more into something that is going to stop you from reclaiming your time. So make sure that you follow the podcast or subscribe on YouTube so that you get notified when that episode drops. And if your goal is to double your take-home pay without doubling your workload, then you really need to join the Profit Plan Challenge. The challenge was probably the best thing that I did in all of 2024. I only ran it once last year, and I'm going to run it again this year starting May 12th. In the challenge, I'm going to give you 5 daily lessons along with action items, spreadsheets, calculators, workbooks, and things to help you implement what we're learning. We're going to have live coaching and a community platform, and it is going to be completely free. But I am asking you to invest your time. So this is a really good example of prioritizing your time on things that are going to move the needle, because what we're going to map out in the challenge is how you can adjust your business model and your business strategy and map out the exact next steps that you need to take in order to double your pay without doubling your workload. All right. So go sign up at trustyoungco.com/challenge, and I'll see you next week.